Hello, I'm Tom Bailey, and in today's episode, I'll be getting to know Inga Hebdon, who is a pursuit strategist and professional impact coach, and a member of the International Coaching Federation, as well as the founder of Medea International. So, Inga, hello, and a very warm welcome to today's episode.
Thanks, Tom. Really great to be here.
No, I appreciate you coming along. And just out of interest, whereabouts are you in the world right now?
Actually, I'm based in Northwest London. It's a little bit warm today,
Mhm.
fortunately not as boiling as the other days.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of a mini heat wave here in the UK.
We do.
Incredible. So I just want to share a little bit more about you before we do get started. So Inga has a track record of strategic and operational leadership on multinational sales opportunities. She has over 15 years experience in business development and also extensive expertise in developing win-win solutions for her clients. The title for today's episode is Why Impact and Presence Matter to Leadership Success. And Inga is going to explain why in just 7 minutes. So, question number one for you today is who are your ideal clients?
Thanks, Tom. I'm really grateful that you're asking this question. So, my ideal clients are senior leaders, executives, or partners appointed to their
Mhm.
role, hence less than 6 months in their role. And I'm looking at medium-sized businesses, in particular in the professional services industry, as well as in the financial services sector.
Perfect. Nice and clear. Thank you so much. And my second question today is what would you say is the biggest challenge that your clients typically face?
Yeah. So think about every new role. It's demanding. You're stepping into an unknown environment. But in particular, the more senior you get, the thinner the air becomes, and the
Yeah.
more relevant are skills such as having a strong presence, ability to influence people and make positive impressions, because that will ultimately push the business forward. But on the other hand, because it's relatively lonely, they don't have that peer-to-peer connection, and they're confronted with a mountain of information, really with a lack of clarity in terms of can they trust the information,
Mhm.
but also, well, with whom do I need to connect in order to push certain initiatives and strategic decisions forward?
Great. And I guess if they don't have these connections or they don't have that presence at the top or they're not creating the right impact,
Yeah.
what impact can this have on either, them or their business?
Mm. Besides them being utterly frustrated,
Yeah.
they're not gonna get anywhere, right? They will not create the right relationships. They will not have the influence and the impact on the business they actually envisaged and get hired for. Ultimately, that will also lead on a personal level, to self-doubt,
Mhm.
self-doubt in their own decisions they're making. So they may even start to feel out of control or have a lack of control, which then ultimately leads, in many cases, to micromanaging.
Yeah.
Micromanaging at that level, and even the direct reports, that usually doesn't go down very well. So there's then the entire issue of creating a different kind of company culture, and it's creating uncertainty in the business. So there's a whole wide range of consequences those senior leaders can ultimately face.
Great. And I guess if they're unsuccessful in the role, it can ultimately lead to reputational damage as well for them in the long term.
Absolutely.
So, if anyone is listening to this and they are starting a new role in that senior position, what is one valuable piece of advice that you might give to them to really help them solve this problem?
I think the single best advice or the single best thing they can do is seek out feedback.
Yeah.
And that feedback in many forms, either from peers they know throughout previous careers, networking events, other external sources like me, for
Mhm.
example. But
Yeah.
in general, it's that seek out the feedback, so they have a well-rounded view and they get challenged even on their thinking.
Fantastic. Thank you. And if somebody does want some help from an external source, what's the one valuable resource that you can share with them to really help them get started?
Yeah. So piggybacking on that feedback bubble and that set, creating that kind of safe space, right? So I run executive roundtables free every month. particular for those new exec senior leaders and partners. So in that, I create that safe space for them where we would be talking about the kind of the challenges they're facing, any kind of hot topics, which is similar to everybody. I would encourage an exchange of insight and best practice. So it's, think about it like a moderated and facilitated conversation, which I'll be having with the different people, because it's a very exclusive roundtable. We're talking a maximum of 5 people attending. So it's really also everything is going to be confidential, obviously, in that case. And well, if anybody is actually interested in that, it's probably best to get in touch with me through LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, so if somebody just searches for my name, Inga Hebdon, and then drops me a private message through LinkedIn with the heading Executive Roundtable, I can then send the details through everybody involved.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And what I'll do as well is I'll put a link to your LinkedIn page in the show notes. And obviously, if someone can just send you a quick message on there with that title in the message, you'll be able to get them onto that program.
That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent. So next question from me is more aimed at yourself. And that is, what would you say is one of the greatest either mistakes or failures you've either made either in life or business? And what did you learn from it?
Ooh, that's a really good one, because a lot what I'm talking about, it kind of comes from personal experience, in particular the building up the right network, being confident enough, being out there, basically. So if I and one of the biggest changes in me was a situation when I was going for a promotion. And I didn't really get the promotion because somebody else who actually had the ability of building those better relationships, who had the influence, who therefore had the insight, or more and better insight than I had, that person got the job.
Yeah.
Which ultimately, I mean, it wasn't a pleasant experience, but I did learn from it. And I realized, well, if I'm not really influencing, if I'm not true to myself, if I'm not brave enough, if I'm not authentic in how I show up in work, and that includes asking for help and includes asking for feedback, how will I actually expect that I'm getting to where I want to be getting?
Yeah.
And so I really had to push those boundaries, and that specific situation really made me think about it.
Yeah, fantastic lesson to learn. And ultimately it is surround yourself with great people and ask for help when you need it. And that will ultimately help you in the long run. So the last question for me today is, what is the one question that I should have asked you that will also bring some great value to our audience today?
I think there's a question around why am I focusing on those six or 18 months? Why is that so important? And I alluded to that in the beginning of our conversation, where those 6 months are really where one sets themselves up for success.
Yeah.
And if I just throw in a couple of statistics, and it's going to sound really, really scary, but I'm not just grasping this out of thin air, right? So Harvard Business Review or McKinsey, both of those institutions have stated that 30 to 50% of senior execs, they actually fail in their first 18 months, and that only 3 or 5 newly appointed CEOs live up to their expectations. So that is a really crucial and quite a high number. If I would know that and stepping into a role like that, that would really scare me. But in order to avoid all that, it is again about having the right support in place, getting the feedback, getting challenged, but also having a safe space to gain new perspective. So basically, so that they can swim and they're not drowning.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. Lots and lots of great advice today, Ingi. Thank you so much again for coming along to this podcast. And I really appreciate you spending the time here today.
All right. Thank you, Tom. It's really great being here.